Welcome to Live with Lisa Michaels Accountability Show. I appreciate you joining me tonight. I'm doing the Unreported News, the only live conservative television show here in the Portland metropolitan area. So this is your chance to call in, but I don't know if we're going to have much of a chance tonight, because tonight we're going to be rocking and rolling. There is so much unreported news that the mainstream propaganda machines are not telling you about, that it boggles the mind, and I'm sure I'm not going to be able to cover it all, but sit tight. It's going to be fast and furious. We're going to be going over a little-known case in Pennsylvania about this house of horrors abortionist who is accused of killing hundreds of babies, alive babies, after they were born, on top of a lot of other horrific things. And the news media won't talk about it. Why? Because it's not politically correct, because it's my body and I'll kill if I want to. That's really their attitude. You know, just because another person's body, their own son or daughter, is growing within inside them, that gives them the right to kill the baby. It just boggles the mind. I get so furious about it. It's not unviable skin tissue. If you were lied to and you bought into that and you're dealing with the horror and the nightmare of that, my prayers go out to you. I'm very, very sorry. But we cannot continue to be supporting this horrible murder, slaughter of our unborn babies. 50 million babies have been killed in our country. I mean, we've got to stop it. And you've got to pay attention to these stories. I don't care if you made that horrific choice. You need to not encourage your daughter and your daughter's friends, and encourage and support political ideologies that support it, because it's bad. If you've never had a baby, maybe you never were. One of the side effects of having abortions is you become infertile. You can't have any babies. So if you had made that choice and you don't have a baby, that might be partly why. And I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about it. It's a life. It's a beating heart. I mean, you go in like 6 weeks into it and you get to hear the heartbeat, and your child's growing inside you. It's an amazing miracle that the Lord has presented us with, and this has got to stop. We've got to stop this. And good news is, if you did make that choice, your baby's waiting for you up there in heaven, and their soul, they don't hold a grudge. Just ask for forgiveness. You can be healed. I mean, and to show you that there is a baby, and that baby does have a soul, I want to take you to an amazing story. This is Heaven is for Real. This is a young boy who passed away and went to heaven. And this is his story. He was almost 4 years old. It's amazing, and hopefully they talks about making a movie out of it. There is a book out there, Heaven is for Real. So here is that story. Let's watch that.
Heaven is for Real, and they both joined me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Gretchen.
Todd, let me start with you. You're facing a crisis. Your son, an emergency surgery. You think you might not be able to save him. He recovers. It's a miracle, but then you hear a story you never thought you'd hear.
Yeah, we went through the scariest ordeal of our lives, watching our son suffer. He was misdiagnosed. He had appendicitis, and they thought he had the stomach flu. And by the time they figured out what was really wrong with him, we figured his appendix had probably been burst for about 5 days. Mm-hmm. And he was one really just sick, very sick child. And when we finally got out of the hospital, all of a sudden, it took a long time, but he started sharing stories and things with us, and all of a sudden we realized something special happened while Colton was in the hospital.
Right, because Colton, you were able at that age, 4, to tell your parents that you were above them while you were being operated on, and where did you see them?
Well, I saw my dad in a little room talking to God, and then I saw my mom in another room talking on the phone and talking to one of her friends.
And Todd, there was no way he would have known about that, right?
No, while those events were happening, he was in surgery under anesthesia, and when he starts describing where we were at and what we were doing, I was stunned. I was like, how does he know that? And that's where our story began. And
then he also started to tell you about Pop, who was your grandfather. Was your grandfather his grandfather? Anyway, he had been deceased for 30 years?
Yeah, it was my grandfather, Colton's great-grandfather, and I was really close to him as a child. And Pop was a special person in my life, but he was killed in a car wreck before I turned 7. He can recognize pictures of Pop as a young man, talks about the time I spent with him as a child. It's incredible.
You also, Colton, say that God is a very, very big person, right?
Yeah, he can actually fit the entire world into his hands.
Wow. So many people want to know what you now know. What about Jesus?
Well, Jesus, he had a rough but kind face, sea blue eyes, and a smile that lit up the heavens.
And what about old people? They are not up in heaven, right?
No, just young adults.
Yeah, the good news, Gretchen, is when you go to heaven, it'll be the young version.
A lot of us, including myself, like to hear that part of it. Todd, real quickly, I want to get what happened about a miscarried child that you and your wife had and what Colton told you.
Yeah, we were in the living room one day, and just like any typical day, and he's 4 at the time, he kind of comes bouncing in the room, and he just goes up to his mom and says, "Mom, I have 2 sisters." And it took us a while to ask him, "What are you talking about?" And he just looks at his mom and says, "Mom, you had a baby die in your tummy, didn't you?" And just time stopped. And she's like, "Who told you that?" And
Right.
Colton's like, "Well, she did. She told me she died in your tummy."
Amazing.
And it just, wow, yeah.
Amazing story.
The little boy, he dies, and if he was able to continue, there's other videos on YouTube. I encourage you to look at them. And Colton says that he came up to his mother. She was doing the bills, and he said, "Mom, you have another sister," and I have another sister, and he said, "No, you only have the one sister." And he said, "Oh no, she looks like her, except for she's got dark hair and she's bigger, and she kept hugging me, and she'd had the miscarriage." So they have souls. I think if you for some reason didn't realize that, they do have souls, and these are poor little babies. And now I have to get to this tragic story, and I'm sorry, maybe this is why the news media is not covering it. The only news media that's covering it is Fox News, and they...
If he's convicted of murdering babies born alive during abortions at his West Philadelphia clinic. One of his medical assistants testified the doctor instructed her to, quote, snip the spinal cords of at least 10 babies after they were out of the womb. Adrienne Moten told the jury she measured one baby whom she thought could have survived and estimated its gestational age to be around 7 months. Pennsylvania allows abortions up to 6 months of pregnancy. And Moten testified that Dr. Gosnell joked that one of the larger-sized aborted babies could have walked to the bus stop. Defense attorney Jack McMahon counters that the abortions were legal, that there's no physical evidence the babies cried or moved after they were out of the mother, as other witnesses have alleged, and that they all died in the womb after a drug was injected to cause an abortion. Pro-life advocates call the case, quote, horrifying, and say it should push lawmakers to look again at late-term abortion laws.
Why is it okay that these babies can have their lives ended, if only when it takes place in the womb?
But the National Abortion Federation counters that, quote, this particular facility in Philadelphia is an outlier and not typical of the high-quality abortion care provided by the majority of abortion providers in this country. One constitutional lawyer who has advocated against partial birth abortion says no matter what state law says about abortions, doctors cannot kill a baby born alive.
Under federal law, under something called the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, that child is a person and is entitled to all protections of federal law.
A couple of states are putting more restrictions on early and late-term abortions. Arkansas has outlawed them after 3 months. And North Dakota is awaiting the governor's signature on a law outlawing them after a baby's heartbeat is detected, sometimes as early as 6 weeks.
I really should check it out. It's too horrifying. Kermit Gosnell, apparently there was an article in the Oregonian. Last Friday, let's see, we're April what, 15th or something, 2013. This guy was indicted, and they first found out about this in 2010. 2010? I'm not going to give the Oregonian a pass for finally, and this is after the defense has rested, that they're finally going to mention this. This is heinous. 3 things that you're putting yourself at significant risk of happening to you if you choose to have your son or daughter dismembered and ejected from your womb, or your girlfriend's womb, or your wife's womb, whatever. First of all, you put yourself at dramatic risk of having a difficulty in the time in delivering a live birth later when you do choose to have a child. Number two, you are putting yourself at significant risk of becoming infertile. And the last one, and they have, in some of the cases, have found it's almost 100%. If you have a history of breast cancer in your family and you've had an abortion before you've ever given birth to a child and gotten the milk making machine working and up to snuff, then you have they have found like 100% of them contract breast cancer. Okay, so you can't tell the milk making breasts to make milk and then stop halfway through and not think you're going to cause abnormal cell development. You don't even have to be a doctor to understand that basic reality. So I beg of you, please, please stop being, this is a politically incorrect show, I don't care. Stop making it about a political issue and all this other, and somebody tell me what to do with my body. You know, I got a song for that. It's my body and I'll kill if I want to, kill if I want to. That's what you're saying. That is what you're saying. If you think that it's all about your body, because it's not about your body, it's about the body of your son or daughter, your own flesh and blood. Okay? And I am really sorry. Tragically, a vast majority of my own friends have made this terrible choice. And, you know, the Lord will forgive you, you know, ask for forgiveness, but please don't champion it to include other young women that haven't made that choice yet. Don't encourage other young girls to make this choice. Please, please. Thanks so much for calling.
Called before. I wanted to talk about abortion. At the end, they told me that I could get abortion up to 9 months in the hospital. And I couldn't believe it. And this was in 1977. And they said the way they do it is they put salt water into the womb and the baby slowly dies and starves to death. And that's up to 9 months. But when I first started to get abortion, I didn't want one because I believed that, you know, it's against God's law. And family planning was the one that convinced me to try to go get abortion. And they said it was only a blood clot. And they told me I couldn't get back on welfare because I was working right now. They said all kinds of things about my life, that had ruined my life, and this was a family planning clinic.
Was it Planned Parenthood? By chance, was it Planned Parenthood by chance?
I think it was. It was through the WIC program where they give little kids nutritional foods on the WIC, and it's usually for kids that go to Head Start and things like that. Well, they also had a family planning program right there with the WIC program. Okay. And they believe in abortion. I didn't go through with it, and they lied to me. They said it was only a blood clot. And when I went to get abortion, I was about 5 months along, and family planning lied to me. And my son, as a teenager, his dad told him about it, and he said that I tried to murder him. And, you know, I love my son very much. Yeah. And I was manipulated into that, but I didn't get abortion.
Thank you for your valiant choice. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. And thanks for watching the Live with Lisa Michaels show.